When the rain don't fall, that's when you know you're gonna go dry. When the rain don't fall, that's when you know you're gonna go dry. And it won't do no good to be crying out loud, babe, or cursing the sky.
Hi, welcome to Thinking Green. I'm Rana, and I'm joined today by frequent guest Eddie Long, who today has his New London Arts Council hat on. He's co-chair of the New London Arts Council and has been for a few years now. And we're going to talk about what's coming up in New London. So welcome back, Eddie. It's been a while.
Thanks for having me again, Rana. I do feel like a bit of an alum, right? Like if this was a
Yeah.
stadium, my jersey should be hanging from the rafters or something.
Yeah, so what number is Eddie?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm really glad to be talking today about something that's really positive that's happening locally, because I feel a little bad that so many of the shows recently have been about more global, national political stuff and not very happy making.
Right, and some of the events we've had that are happy making, some of them got rained out, so we just keep getting hammered, don't we?
It's been a year. So, Eddie, I guess one thing we can start with is like, what is new, with the New London Arts Council? I think it's been several months since
Yeah.
you were on talking about it.
Almost a
and
year, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I'm sure things are happening.
Oh yeah, so we are on the grow, generally speaking. I mean, the size of our leadership has grown, and I mean literally, we added a new seat to the council. That's officially happened. Our numbers are up, regular attendance at the meetings of all age groups, I'll just say that. That's something that warms my heart too. Because the meetings, we do business in the meetings, but they're always an opportunity for the arts community to get together. We always have time at the end of the meetings where people are blabbing and connecting, and that's kind of just as important as the work we're doing in the meetings, because we want to build that community up.
And since the Arts Council really is, well, more and more inclusive of all the different facets of the
Absolutely.
arts, I imagine that's more and more important to make connections among different kinds of artists who might not have crossed paths before.
Well, sure. It's actually that concept is built into our structure. There's a counselor to represent every discipline of art. There's a few that we've missed, but that's why we added a new seat. But that's the basic structure of the Arts Council, is that there's a counselor to represent various art disciplines. There's two counselors to represent small and nonprofit, and then we have a counselor to represent creative businesses or art-based businesses. So we do kind of have our, I don't want to say our hands in everything, but we have our ears, in everything, or to the ground, because we have access to all those different parts of the art community, and it is very helpful to us. The seat that we just added was photography and new media. And we felt that was important just as a reaction to what we're seeing in the community. There is a real uptick lately in the popularity of photography in the city. We really seen it take off when, unfortunately, the church collapsed, on State Street. And so that was just one little flashpoint in it. But there was a real resurgence, in my opinion, of photography in the city. And it's great. And I think it happens every once in a while in New London. It usually starts with the students. The young students come to town, they haven't lived away from home, everything is exciting and new, and they want to document all of it. But they start Instagram accounts, they're sharing, they're making videos, and it's exciting. And so we felt we were lacking, not connecting in a strong way to that part of the community. So created a new seat for photography and new media, and it's really done well for us. It's really done well for us. A lot of our newest meeting attendees skew younger, they're college student age, and a lot of them are either photographers, videographers, or some combination of both.
Now, do you find that photography, because people can do it, fancy photography with fancy equipment, but you can
Yeah.
take phone pictures that you can use on social media that can be pretty striking. Does photography seem to be one of the easier entry points into the arts than some others?
So that's a good question, and my humble opinion, I'd say yeah. It's true that because of cell phones, we do all have access to that type of equipment, but that doesn't hurt photography. That helps it. It hurts camera companies, maybe, but the
only
practice,
the real pros are getting
Right.
the real fancy lenses.
but the practice of photography, no, it's on the grow. It's on the grow. We see it here in the city, and I think that's just generally true because of the access everyone has to it, and the capability of some of these phones is really remarkable. But there's real benefits to it. I mean, people can express themselves creatively, of course, but we see things being documented, at a higher clip and a more frequent rate because of everyone's access to the camera in their pocket, which can be very beneficial. But it's a really fun thing for the community because everyone can document everything. And so it's just fun for, if you're somebody like me and content is on your mind, and you're always looking for things to share on some social media platform, it's really helpful to see an engaged community sharing so much of what's going on.
So, what events have you had recently that you might want to talk about?
So the first one, see, that's the funny thing is the Arts Council drills down and has, I'll say, a very few events that we organize, right? We're more of a promotional when it comes to events. But for the things that we organize, the first most important has got to be our annual strategic planning session. The annual strategic planning session is a chance for the community to come and weigh in a big way. We do it at the beginning of the year, and it is for two reasons. It's for artists and creatives in the community to tell us what they're seeing, what they think, where they think there's a need, if the Arts Council can help. Can we connect, a segment of our arts community to some resource to help them grow? Whatever they're seeing, we want to hear about it, and then more specifically, kind of an extension of that, what they think we can be working on. What the community needs doesn't necessarily mean it's something the Arts Council can provide, but we like to hear it, and we can make connections, and we can build it up. It sounds so obvious, but the strength of the arts community is critical to a vibrant, wider community. It just is, and it's not about economics. It's everything. It's
well,
absolutely
it's partly
everything.
about economics, but it isn't
Yeah.
solely about
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. You can get a whole show out of the benefits that art has to the economy. But it really is about more than that to us, because that kind of bleeds into tourism and that sort of thing. And we're around for those conversations, but we're more concerned with the individual artists. The arts scene, the arts community, that's what gets people to come to the city, but you just don't have it without the artists. So the Arts Council feels its real priority is to ensure that those artists that make up our arts community, can live and work and have a vibrant life in New London, so they're not tempted to go somewhere else.
Yeah, we want them here.
We want them here. We want them here.
We do. Well, I'm reminded that, when you think about like where to prioritize improvements in a city, if you like fix the things that make it good for those who live here, it also makes it good for tourists who come here. Like, if the sidewalks are in good shape, well, that's good for us who live here, but it's also good for people who visit.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't always look at things that are beneficial, whether you're staying put or whether you're here for a day.
Right.
And we're just looking to bring people in for the day.
Right.
And
what gets people to come and stay for the day or the weekend or eventually move here if they've enjoyed their visit, is a vibrant community. The Arts Council We affect it in a couple of different ways. We're very proud of our full slate of counselors that we have now, because it's allowed us to start forming subcommittees. Some of these counselors, with their different backgrounds and experiences and focuses, they bring so much to the table, and so we empower them, and it's great. And it's great because they have taken real lead, and we have subcommittees going right in line with what you're talking about. We have a spaces community that's focused on, not just living, but studio space as well. What's available in the city and how artists can access it and open those places up. I mean, that's always top three, conversation topics in New London is empty spaces. And so that certainly applies to the arts community. And some of those spaces are small, but maybe they're a great size for a studio. Maybe they could be a gallery. And my personal opinion is we should look more into that, because a gallery is about as low overhead as something can get. It's not free to open a gallery, I'm not saying that, but it also isn't a restaurant. You don't need a fryer to run a gallery, you know what I mean? And so if there was just something in place that would get some of these, escalate the opening of some of these spaces, the arts community would really benefit, and that means the rest of the community would too.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, am I correct in thinking that the Hot Rods location is going to become gallery space?
That is incorrect, because it's already a gallery space.
Okay.
It's not coming, it's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I saw the floor plan, it was just coming, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad to hear that
And
it's here.
it did kind of fly in under the radar. It's there. I actually rolled by it today and noticed that there were some paintings in there. It's funny you brought that up. But I heard that it was coming, and I'm happy about it for all the reasons I just said. I mean, the more the merrier. We'll talk about the art stroll, of course, that's why I'm here, so I'm going to bring us down for just a moment. I mean, it really is important to me that every single resident in the city, from the top to the bottom, whatever that means to you, really keeps in mind how significant the arts community is and what role it's played. Because the great irony is that people come into New London to invest because we have such a vibrant arts community. Well, how do you think, or a vibrant community, well, how do you think it got so vibrant? And then they invest and they build, and sometimes the artists can't afford to stay here. This is playing out as we speak. And so if we go too far in that direction, it's just important to me that the artists and the arts community are always front and center, so that we don't lose that. We don't lose that. We used to have a lot more galleries in the city than we do. So something like turning Hot Rods, which is a very well-known space, into a gallery, I love that idea, because we do need more galleries in New London.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be bad to have more restaurants, but we have a lot of restaurants.
Yeah.
And space is, well, as you know, as everyone knows, it's a very hot topic. Space, although you see empty spaces, the marketplace has gone kind of crazy, and they're costly. And cities all over the place. I think this one happened in Providence. It's happened in many places that artists come someplace because it's interesting and it's affordable.
Right.
And then they turn it into a really popular place. And then rents go up for living and gallery and studio and performance. And they can't afford it. And they move to the next cheap spot.
Right.
And things are maybe more upscale, but you lost what made it
But
fun
are
to
they
begin
fun,
with.
Rana? Are they
Right.
fun?
You lose what makes it interesting.
Right. I mean, if everything is shiny and new and, covered in marble, I guess that's cool, but I want life. I want life in the city, and I want people mingling and interacting and walking down the street, which is the best segue into the art stroll, isn't it? Because public art is also something that the New London Arts Council is refocusing on, not just murals. Public art in general. There's quite a bit of little statues around New London here and there, and so and some of them not so small. And so we want to kind of shine a spotlight on those again. And so there's a subcommittee devoted to that as well, and a subcommittee devoted to the art stroll. It's big enough that it gets its own subcommittee, a dedicated group of our members and some of our leadership focused on it. It makes me very happy.
Now, we did see the first slide briefly, but if we could show it again, just a picture
Yeah, let's
from
get into it.
Last year's art stroll.
No, this is I believe
Or
slide one
this-
is, yeah, that's this year.
Oh, this is this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the date is this year.
Yep. So, I mean, the art stroll, last year's art stroll was our maiden voyage. And so this year we're super encouraged because right away when we started talking about it again, people perked up. They were interested in seeing it come back. And in terms of artists that participated and venues that participated, we've grown our numbers.
Now, does that represent just more people being aware of the art stroll, or have we actually had more artists moving to town?
Well, I'm gonna have to say it's the art stroll.
Okay.
Because we've had some artists move to town, but some of the artists on the art stroll don't live in the city's limits.
true.
They're regional. And that's okay. You know, you want to bring talent into the city that will encourage spectators and visitors to come
Sure.
into the city. So we love the idea of that mix. I mean, at the end of the day, it's taking place in New London, and the venues, the spots on the map that are highlighted are all New London businesses or offices or locations, so it's great.
So, what's happening this year in the art stroll?
So for this year, the first new thing is we have a new partner. That's the Cultural District. The New London Cultural District is, a state-backed entity. There they are. A state-backed entity that we've partnered with. Their focus is really tourism and enhancing the area downtown, back to restaurants. And I always remind people, my fellow co-chair, Emma Pelzier-Ray on the Arts Council likes to say, the difference between the NLAC and the New London Cultural District is person and place. We focus on the individual artist in the community, and New London Cultural District does focus on creative locations in New London, but also restaurants and other tourist-like focuses. So we're good partners because we don't overlap so much. Our focus is similar, but we don't really overlap, and so we're not repeating any efforts or wasting any time.
Right. And I'm guessing it's easy enough for you to communicate so you're not working at cross purposes.
Yeah, well, so that is actually a fun point. That is baked into the structure of the cultural district. That it was built to have an arts counselor present on the commission, and we have regular visitors, I guess, liaisons is a better word,
Yeah.
from meeting to meeting, sitting in so we can be aware of what the other group has going on. It's designed that way to include the Arts Council, and also, you know, other parts of the city. Like there has to be somebody who works in the restaurant field on the cultural district, and there's got to be a local artist, not just an arts counselor. So they're very, very involved in the arts community, but still not so much that it's two groups doing the same thing. It's not like that at all.
So, what's new this year?
So the numbers are up. I am super proud to announce that we have 25 registered artists this year. That's up from 17 last year. And that number could still grow. It will grow because another fun acquisition or addition, well, not really. On the first Saturday of every month for the summer, there are markets on Golden Street. It's basically an annual thing. And so when we were picking the time for the art stroll, we landed on August 8th, and then we realized that the market is on that day. And we thought, we have nothing to gain from starting before the market or finishing after them, so let's just have the stroll be the same time as the Saturday market on Golden Street, and we'll just feed each other, you know? And so that's worked really well because the market is located right there on Golden Street, perfect. So the market is located on Golden Street, and also on Golden Street is the Eugene O'Neill parking lots. And so we're trying to encourage people to start there, park in that lot, and the first thing you'll see is the visitor center. That's where we'll be handing out maps and
Oh, yeah, the trolley station
right,
building.
New London pins or buttons. And then right next to that is our new London sign for selfies and that. And then the next thing in line is the markets. It's all right there at the entrance to the parking lot. And the markets take place right outside of the Golden Owl, which is the bookstore that replaced the Telegraph on Golden Street.
And we had a show on that too, so
Had a show
hopefully
on
people
that.
remember. But if you didn't see it, you can go onto YouTube and find it.
Right, right. So that's that's the first big change, is that it's big enough now that we can kind of sort of direct people to one spot to start in, namely the parking lot, because we want to make sure people have a place to park, but also, I mean, there's so much to do right there. And then when you split off from Golden Street, you can head up Golden Street to Union Street. As you walk up Golden Street, some people familiar with New London might know the Willie Nelson mural.
Yep.
And then when you get to the top of the street, you make the left, and there is the New London, Connecticut mural, the NLCT mural from Wermo. And then the very next stop is actually Spark Makerspace. They have an open house. I believe it's for a 2-hour window every Saturday, but they will have an open house that takes place throughout the entire stroll. So anybody who comes to the stroll at any time can go into Spark and learn more about that organization, and I really hope people do that. And at the end of Union Street, or I'm sorry, you turn off of Union Street and you go down, help me, Meridian?
Masonic?
Masonic, thank you. And at the corner of Masonic and Washington Street, there's New London Landmarks. They have a new director, and so we were happy they reached out to us. They wanted to get involved, and we were happy to have them. The next stop on the Art Stroll map after them on Washington Street is the Washington Street Coffee House, or the Wash as we call them here.
Yep.
And that makes me really happy. It's a great space, but that's a good spot on the Art Stroll map, food and drink, you know.
Right,
coffee,
and they
bagels,
always
that
have
sort of
art
thing.
on the walls.
They always have art on the walls, that's correct. But this year, you know, to go along with the Art Stroll, they're going to have 2 artists featured out front on tables. One 2-dimensional artist and one 3-dimensional artist. And then you continue on past Golden Street, or I'm sorry, past Washington Street up to State Street. And on State Street, we have the Guard. And then it's coming. On State Street, we have the Guard. We have the Duarte building.
Right.
There it is. Oh, I'm sorry, let's go back to the Guard. The Guard, for some time now, has been showing art in their lobbies, and they have a pretty substantial size lobby. And they really want to remind people and let people know that they also have that. They do so much there. It's not just a theater. They can do seminars, they can do speeches, they can do events, they can do movies, you know. So they really want to get into the gallery game, and we're happy about that. So the Guard is a good stop on State Street.
Yeah, in
across
fact,
from
now they have yoga there.
Now they have yoga there. I'm sorry, I forgot about the yoga. The Duarte building is across from the Guard Arts Center, and that includes 3 artist studios, Marvin Espy, Katie Fogg, and Coco Dream Studio. A little bit further down State Street in the Harris Place building is Magic Press.
That's Allie.
That's Alley. And the Annex is almost across the street from them. Of course, that's a retail space, but they also have a gallery inside. Another new acquisition this year on Green Street, which runs right next to the Annex, is a Dutch Tavern, which is.
Oh, is it going to be reopening?
It
for
certainly
this stroll?
is. It certainly is. They're making a splash. I love that. Wonderful people over there, the new owners are. They were happy to get involved. And another place for refreshments, we'll say. I'm not going to encourage anybody to get any specific product from the Dutch Tavern. And I just want to remind you, they also sell food. And
True. And while you're talking about, you know, the Annex and the Dutch and murals, you know, Denny Rivera just, you know, resketched the street mural at Green and Golden.
Yes, yes.
So during your walking around, you might be walking over it, and I think the direction of the lightning bolt shifted with this new paint.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
I think it was backwards the first time he did it. He did it right this this time,
You know-
but it was counterclockwise before, and now it's clockwise, or vice versa.
You raise a good point, because if you're leaving the Eugene O'Neill parking lot and walking up to Union, you will cross over
Yeah,
that
you'll
mural.
be walking on
That
it.
should be a spot on the, that should be, I mean, not like you
Yeah,
can miss
it's one
it,
of
but
the,
there are some spots that will be on the map that aren't a venue with an artist
Right.
featuring it. It's just, hey, you're in New London to look at art. You got to go over here.
yeah,
You got to
and
go
you're
over
going to
here.
walk on this art.
Right, you're going to walk on this art. Great opportunity for pictures too, by the way, the green and golden mural. And then a little bit off the beaten path, I hate to say it, but still very accessible. Right after the Guard is Red Square, which of course is the gallery space and studio of the lovely and talented Mike Allowitz. Speaking of muralists, he actually just announced he'd be redoing one of his mural series, teaching about murals. So I'm very excited about that. But Red Square, Mike Allowitz is a repeat offender. He was in the Art Stroll last year as well. We're happy to have him back. And so, yeah, so from there, we haven't talked about Bank Street yet. There's kind of a loop happening for the Stroll map, but it isn't a perfect circle. So on Bank Street, if you come back down State, we're going to start at the far end. Thames River Gallery. There's always work from other artists in there, and there should be an artist in there as well for the Art Stroll, but it's definitely going to be a spot on the map. Lots of great stuff to see there, and they're going to have some company on that end of Bank Street. The Telegraph, the new location of the Telegraph, will feature 3 artists in the store, so when you're in there, don't just shop for records. Take a trip to the back and go see the 3 artists as well. The Custom House Museum and Studio 33, they're right next to each other. There can be a performance at the Custom House, and Studio 33 will have a painter and a photographer in it. Further down Bank Street, my goodness, I just realized that this list doesn't include Espressiones, which is a new acquisition to the Art Stroll map, so apologies, but Espressiones will also be on the Art Stroll map. And then just past them is the Women's Business Development Council in what used to be the Liberty Bank on Bank Street. They'll have 2 artists there. And then I like to put the Parade Plaza and the Whaletail Fountain, just because if you're in town, you got to check it out.
Sure.
You got to check it out.
And there are some cool mosaics on the benches.
There are. I like the statue. But yeah, so 25 artists. The Golden Street Market typically usually has about 5 or so, maybe a little more artists. So really, if you come to New London for the Art Stroll, you'll see more than the 25 artists that we have registered. You're going to be at that market, and you're going to see a few more too. So it's fair to say if you come to New London for the Art Stroll, you're going to be seeing and interacting with maybe 30 artists or more.
Well, as you were looking, going through the list, I couldn't help but think, like, what a range of styles of art a person can walk through and get exposed to in, an hour and a half, or 2-hour walk.
Yeah, like off the top of my head, Women's Business Development Council will have a traditional two-dimensional artist and a performer. The Telegraph has 3 different artists. They're all painters, I believe. The Duarte Building, I mean, you get to walk in the 3 different studios and see the workspace of an artist, which is just great because you can learn a lot more about them, see more of their pieces probably. And those 3 artists are pretty different. Katie Fogg's a pretty prolific painter, well known in the city. Marvin Espy, well known in the city. And Rosie Rosato, very well known in the city. A very unique art style she has with live body painting. So a great variation, Some photographers in there too. Studio 33 will have a painter and a photographer. So I like the variation. I like it.
Yeah, and then Red Square is, Mike Allowitz isn't just a muralist.
Right.
He's a very political muralist.
Yeah, he's got, well, yeah, and you know what? It's a studio. It's his studio. It's a gallery. It's also a museum.
It is.
It is really also a museum. So just really happy to have him on the Art Stroll because there's a lot of history in that building. And if you're coming into London and talk about art, you should be talking about Red Square too. Yeah.
Now, how did the Golden Street thing get started? I imagine it had something to do with Rich Martin when he still had the Telegraph on Golden Street, but
Yeah, because he had the ability to use that space right in front of his store. Rich was there for the conversations in the beginning. Bug, who works at the Telegraph with Rich, they do really great work, real hero in the community. And back in the day, I don't want to leave anybody out, so I apologize if I do, but just from my memory, and I also remember our current visual arts rep, Sarah Falman Flores, in the beginning, before she joined officially the Arts Council, she was still a contributor, but she was a part of organizing those in the beginning as well. And they've taken different shapes throughout the years. Sometimes they're inside, sometimes they're not. The street is closed, it's not. But this year, I think it's really found its full form, and it seems like it's bigger this year as well. But it was just like the Arts Council, frankly. It was just the artists decided it needed to happen, and so they did it. And I wasn't part of the initial conversations about the Arts Council. I am a founding member and was on the steering committee. But I mean, when this whole idea started, it was just artists saying we need this, and so they did it. And the Art Stroll, like the Saturday markets on Golden Street, it should be stated, are free to participate in. There is no barrier, no threshold for an artist to participate in those. That's sometimes a hindrance for artists, and so we try to avoid that where we can.
well, yeah, get the public. We're really at the point in New London, I think. We just want the public and the artists to get together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that goes back to what I was saying. It's sometimes it feels like doom and gloom when I think about it too long, but it's pretty basic, to figure out. I mean, it's super, super important that aspect of life is celebrated and fought for and maintained. The freedom to be creative and the ability to express yourself. That's how people keep things at bay sometimes. That's how you keep your sanity. So, it's personal to the artists, but it's also a way of making a living. And so something like the Art Stroll, we're happy to invite folks into the city to celebrate our wonderful artists. But I mean, the best way to support an artist. It's reaching in your back pocket and rewarding them for their hard work and for what they've done to beautify the community, or what you're going to take home that's going to beautify your house.
Well, so I'll veer off our outline just a little, so
go
we
for
can
it.
talk about the economic development part of it,
Sure.
because one thing that I think some economic development planners think of doing things the easy way. You get one big or two big employers in your town and kind of don't think much about everything else.
Right.
But things are much more resilient and interesting if you have more diverse centers of economic activity.
Yeah,
And,
keeps things fresh.
So how do the arts play into that for New London, and what is the yet to be realized potential, I guess?
Well, the first thing I would say is we need more galleries. We do need more galleries, because not every artist can have a studio. That's fine. I don't have a studio. It's not a necessity to be an artist to have a studio. It's a great benefit when you do. And so, kind of a midway point. You can't make art in a gallery, but that's a really good opportunity for artists to be exposed to the community in a really meaningful way. We just brought up Marvin Espy, who has a show in the Lyman Allen, a beautiful show in Lyman Allen about representation. And you can go on a website and see those pictures. Does nothing. If you can be close to them and interact, you can see the brush strokes and all that stuff. If that's what you're there for, you need that. But to listen to the artist and talk to them about the work that they're making and why and what goes into it, I mean, you just can't beat that. And a gallery, can do that for an up-and-coming artist, or somebody much more experienced like Marvin. Both of those artists still really benefit from that. And when you've got those types of opportunities, it does encourage artists to stay in the city. And we know the benefit of keeping artists in the city. Now for businesses, where we can really talk about economic development, most of our businesses are creative. Most of them are. I mean, walk down State Street with me. You know what I mean? We have the Guitar Center, or not Guitar Center.
Spindrift.
Spindrift. I'm sorry. That's a creative-based business. We have Caruso. They sell pianos. You know what I mean? We walked right past the Annex. That is a retail location, but they have a gallery inside, and oh my goodness, I couldn't tell you the number of artists that are in the Annex, and each of them does something completely different. And then you round the corner, and you've got something like the Fair Trade store, right? Flavors of Life. We know what a fair trade store is, but everything in there is colorful and bright, and it has a real story behind it. Some of those pieces, you can meet the person who made it. It's just great, and they have got art hanging in there as well. Something like the Telegraph. I mean, that's a straightforward retail location, but it's purely based in art. It's purely based in creativity. And we've walked all the way down, through the city. The Golden Owl. These are all businesses that are popular in the city, but they're all arts based. We don't have an AutoZone on Bank Street. We have galleries and record stores and places that sell guitars.
Well, people don't have to come to New London to find an AutoZone.
They can, by the way.
They
it's on
can.
Coleman Street.
On Coleman, yeah. If you want to go to the stores that are in every town USA,
Yeah.
you can go to Coleman Street.
Yeah.
So New London's got it all, but the
Yeah.
downtown part, which is, well, it's historic. I mean, there are some buildings there that survived the burning of New London and are really old, and even the ones that were built shortly after, there's history there. You don't want to put an AutoZone in a 200-year-old building.
That's true, and that's another good point. I mean, we're talking about businesses, right? Enterprises started by people, whether they're from New London or not, that went into these properties. But the properties themselves are works of art. Some of the facades on some of our buildings are gorgeous. They're gorgeous. And so it really is a city awash in art and creativity. And I really, really don't want to see us lose that. I really don't want to see us lose that. It's always been a part of our identity. I say always, but I mean for a very long time. We're well beyond whaling. You know what I mean? That's our I guess what heritage or legacy or something. But it's not our identity. Whaling is not our identity.
No, and in fact, when whaling ended, the city still thrived after this one business that kind of put it on the map. Ended probably quite suddenly.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of little factories, ironworks and a silk factory and a linoleum factory, and and for a while it was industrial, but kind of a lot of industries. And maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, New London got a little, I don't know, might have lost its way a little economically.
How long ago did you say?
Well, actually, I think urban renewal was probably put a real hurting on New London. What is that?
Yes, it did.
Around late 1960s, early 1970s, and people were fleeing to the suburbs. And I think there wasn't much understanding then about why people were fleeing to the suburbs. So some city planners just wanted to make cities look like the suburbs to keep people here, but that isn't us.
Urban renewal, so that's, that certainly affected our arts community in a huge way. One very important arts entity in New London that isn't on the Stroll just by virtue of location is the Lyman Allen Art Museum. We work very closely with them. Their education director is on the Arts Council, and she's our large nonprofit rep. That kind of perspective invaluable. It's invaluable to something like the Arts Council. But at any rate, going back to urban renewal, I mean, when you look at pictures of the Lyman Allen when they would have shows before '95 came, I mean, no exaggeration, it looks like Woodstock. It looks like Woodstock.
Yeah.
All the way down near the beginning, or I guess the front where the stage would be, and you see the pictures up the hill with the building in the background. It looks like Woodstock. And then here comes '95, right through the middle of it.
Yeah, you used to be able.
There's a happy ending to that story, though.
Oh, what's the happy ending?
Well, they're getting
Yeah.
their property back.
Oh,
You know, or not from
yeah.
not the original property, but they're getting that same use out of it.
Yeah,
again.
they are. In fact, we for the Connecticut Trails Day, a couple of us led a very small, sparsely attended walk, but it was looking at the Lyman Allen landscaping plans for what it intended for their urban park
Yeah.
and community space there.
I mean, it makes me happy for 100 reasons. Not the least of which is the Lyman Allen has always been like kind of a connector, right, between Conn and Williams School to downtown. Those students come downtown, but the path they take from their school to downtown, it's a little lengthy and it's a little sparse. I mean, but there's a highway
Yeah.
running through it. You know, you can't have so much.
It used to be really
but
walkable.
it's building up, right?
Because it's only about 1.25 miles maybe from Conn College to center
Right.
of downtown.
Right.
And if you go to New York City, someone could say, "Oh, this is right down the street." And they mean 3 miles.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and no one thinks twice that they're going to walk, 2 miles to this place right down the block.
That's
So,
true. Going to
you know-
college in Philadelphia, that's
yeah.
exactly what it's like. You're turned around. I lived in suburbia in high school. When I got to college in Philadelphia, that was my first real exposure to urban living or city
Yeah.
life. And I loved it. I still love it. That's why I love New London so much. But yeah, you don't realize
when you're
how
walking-
far away you are from home.
Yeah.
Every street you cross is a block. You keep going and going and going.
Yeah, but if you're walking in, city blocks that have a lot going on, 1 mile doesn't seem that far. And I think part of what happened to Conn College and Lyman Allen is it kind of got separated to where it's not that kind of walk that you have continuous, interesting things to walk through.
Yeah, and then, okay, so that brings us back to public art, because when you leave the schools, the Coast Guard, or if you're coming from Lyman Allen, there's some sculpture lining Williams Street. That's my neighborhood over there. And that kind of stuff's important because, like we said, it's sparse, the stops you can make. There's houses over
Right.
there, not a lot of businesses, and the businesses there are, Mr. G's is over there, that's a restaurant. And so those little splashes of color and art, I mean, it goes such a long way. It really does go such a long way. And then if you see it all laid out on a map, or if you see it all laid out just in list form, all the different pieces of public art we have that aren't attached to a wall, it's quite impressive. It actually is quite impressive because we're not a humongous city. But we should be bragging about the public art we have too, not just our murals. And of course our murals, we cherish them, but we're really about it. It's not just
Right.
murals. We have a lot of public art.
We do, and of course, it's a different way to walk, to downtown from that area. But you mentioned Marvin Espy, who is someone who, a few years ago, most of us in New London had not heard of him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The power of art in this city, it cannot be overstated. You talk about someone like Marvin Espy. He did. He showed up. He was extremely talented. He was like, oh my gosh, what a great get for the city, right? And he made a splash right away. Right away. It's not that easy to do that in some cities. Marvin is supremely talented, but in a city without a thriving arts community, he's got to work a little bit harder to get into spaces that will show that art, or find these places in the area around the city where he can get the residents of the city to go there. Not in New London. It's all right here. He jumped right in, hit the ground running. Someone like our friend Myrna Martinez, right? I love that story. She comes to the city for an art event. They love it so much they move here.
Yeah.
And then she ran for office here. But it started with that, being exposed to what elements in the city we have that are creative and artistic. It's intoxicating for some people, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, and I think, there are a lot of people who live in New London who came from much bigger cities, and New London seems more manageable, but it does still have that sort of feel.
Me?
Yeah. And me,
Well, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I went to college in Philadelphia for art and fell in love with it right away. And the pride that they had in their city, was contagious. And then I left Philadelphia because I left college, and then when I came to New London, I felt that same sensation. The pride that these residents have in the city. It's easy to get swept up in it. It's really easy to get swept up in it.
Yeah, and I think it's a really positive thing. I'm a little biased, but the people,
It's
I mean, there are people who come here too because it's on the water and they have a boat. And I don't want to denigrate that at all, but New London can accommodate both, but it is a funny atmosphere sometimes having the city.
There's always art. Always will give you an answer, a reaction, a response, an opportunity. You're right. The proximity to the river certainly helps shape the city's identity as well. And then you have something like the Custom House. It is exactly both. It's a museum or it's a gallery, but what is it? What is the subject matter? It marries both of those worlds together. So easy. What's our most prominent, probably our most well-known piece of public art? It's a statue. It's a fountain. It's also a whale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we've that's what I like. I like those instances where we can celebrate our. I can't stop thinking of the word heritage because it's just like that's what we used to be, and you can be proud of that, and we celebrate that, and we trumpet that as much as we can. But we have a different identity in New London. I'll always believe that, and it is arts. It is.
Yeah, and it's a long history of arts. So if people want to come to the Stroll, what are the logistics? Is it?
That's a great question. So.
Starting with what time should they show up?
Whenever you want. No, it's 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Last year's Art Stroll was much longer, and it overlapped with Pirate Fest, which is an event that we love. But we, as part of our debrief, you go back to the drawing board, you see what worked, what didn't. We felt like we wanted to have a shorter length, and we thought 5 hours was pretty solid. And there was calls for it to be a little earlier in the day to maybe benefit from the crowd that's out drinking coffee. So we picked 11 to 4 p.m., nice little 5-hour chunk. And if you want to come to the Art Stroll, like we just went over all the different locations, there's a few different spots. I mean, you can park, at the firehouse end of Bank Street and get started right out of the gate with 4 spots on the Stroll map. And then just keep going and work your way all the way up to Fiddleheads and eventually Red Square. You can park up near Fiddleheads, do Red Square. You're going to go to the Guard first, make your way down. But we're trying to encourage people to start with the Eugene O'Neill parking lot for a couple different reasons. I mean, it's the biggest parking lot we've got right in the middle of downtown. It is so close. It's in the center of the action. It's so close to some pretty prominent spots on the map. First of which is our visitor center. We'll have volunteers there handing out maps. Now, to be clear, every venue you go in, you can pick up a map. So however you approach this thing, the first stop you make, if you happen to wind up in one without a map or you're using the one that'll be on your phone, you can get a hard copy. And they'll be good size, that you can walk around with. But we're trying to encourage people to start with that parking lot, hit up the visitor center. You want to get your map, and you want to get your New London Arts Council button, and then you're on your way. You're on your way. It's just that simple. So we went over today all the venues. There's so many great venues and a lot of new ones. But as it gets closer to the Stroll, The real main event is the artists, of course, and who will be featured at the Art Stroll. And so, that'll be listed on our website as it gets closer to the date. And also, you'll be able to find a map on newlondonartscouncil.org. But that's not up yet. So here is our new partner. I'm glad that you're showing this. This is the Cultural District, our new partner for the Art Stroll. We encourage people to check them out. This is, the Art Stroll is an example of where the Cultural District and the Arts Council get together for something that is citywide, all throughout the community, and even kind of based in tourism. But separate from the Art Stroll, the New London Cultural District does a lot of great things in the city, and we really encourage people to learn more about them.
And if people want to learn more about the New London Arts Council, how do they get in touch with you?
Give me a call. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go newlondonartscouncil.org, right? You can see our full line of counselors, all the leadership that's in place. You can see a lot of resources and partners is a part of the website that we're really proud of. Just organizations and entities around the city that are great resources for the city, from the library to Women's Business Development Council, the Cultural Coalition, which is a regional group, but we work very closely with them. You can use the Arts Council's website as a genuine resource if you're an artist, and it can connect you to entities that will help you find things, or organizations that may connect you to grants. So we really try to be a resource, and so that's newlondonartscouncil.org. And of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is a little more formal, Instagram's a little more fun, but we are on both, and we have a presence on both, and we really want you to follow us so you can see what's going on in the arts community, because what's going on in the arts community is what's going on with the artists, and they are the stars of the show.
And do you have any other kinds of meetings or events? Not that we have time for you to go into
Well, of course.
Detail, but can you spend 2 minutes talking about how people can connect with you?
Sure. So what we will always do is list the date and time and location of our monthly meeting. Now, the Arts Council doesn't meet in January, and the Arts Council doesn't meet in July. July, there's just a lot to compete with. So we kind of give people the time off. And it also helps us because although we're not meeting, we are focused on organizing the Art Stroll. So that's where our focus is in July. But our next monthly meeting is Tuesday, August 13th. And we haven't picked a location for that yet.
Yeah, you move around, right?
That's why. So follow along on the Arts Council's website. And when we pick a date or when we pick a location, you'll see that. That's actually a strength. That's a tactic we use. Our meetings are in a different location, a creative business or entity or office. Every month it's a different one. This keeps us in front of people, different people all the time, and it's a wonder for word of mouth to be seen in front of all these different groups every month. It really has helped grow our numbers.
Do you get different people like each time? Or
Each time.
New attendees?
My personal goal is to see at least one new face at every meeting, and we have been doing that for probably almost the last 2 years. There's a new face at every meeting. It's very exciting.
That is exciting. It's
Yeah.
a really positive thing.
And again, every age group too. Every age group. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're getting young folks in too.
Yeah, I mean, we want to see the next generation, but we also want to give some of the older, more experienced artists connections to them, right? Maybe they can learn from them, they can work with them, or just use the same resources that the Arts Council will connect those young artists to. They benefit some of the older artists too.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I think we covered what we were supposed to.
We did.
Yeah.
And what we didn't cover, you can see on newlondonartscouncil.org.
Yes, and you can come in person to the New London Arts Stroll
Yes.
in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Saturday, August 3rd, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come to New London and interact with more than 30 artists in more than 17 places.
Wow, and they're all different disciplines,
All different
of
disciplines.
art, which is really, for me, one of the more interesting aspects of this whole thing, that it isn't just paintings on a wall.
Right.
Well, thank you. Next week, it's going to be totally different. My guest will be Deborah Cohen, who a couple of months ago spent some time in Arizona, I think, at one of the crossings where refugees are coming across. She's going to talk about her experiences there. Yeah, with a lot of slides. We had a show on that similar topic, other friends who especially had there. And it's not quite as fun enough, but it's an important issue that's happening. So we'll see you then, and thanks again.
No problem.
When the rain don't